Our group filed around the building toward the main entrance in its registration line, girls now ahead of the boys. I lagged behind, more interested in surroundings than school, looking over the grassy playfield and the terrain's gentle slope down to the railroad, the ferry landing with the rolling clear surface of the White River, and beyond the dark forested hills of Stone County. It pleased me. During all those years in and out of consolidated schools, I'd always longed to escape the woods and water, and here they were comforting and close, and even the school building's homey style reassured me. Moderate size, wood frame, native stone. Or maybe I was maturing. After all, I got through schools at Mobile, Harrison, and Salesville without my old stomach cramps from the oil fields. However, my main memory of that day is an instant friendship with Harold. After the confusion of signing up in the tiny office, the principal talked to us in a brief assembly. We were then released for lunch and went outside to eat our bag lunches. There was no cafeteria or a lunch program. We older boys settled on the main steps facing the playfield and the river. A dozen older girls chose the narrow side steps toward town. The senior boy went to fetch the one bat and ball from the office. The school had no gloves, bleachers, or any other athletic gear. This was still better than at Salesville, where we'd had only a tattered sponge rubber ball to play Annie over. Except for Lilybeth, who took part in the ball game, the older girls seemed content merely to watch from their perch. Ben, a well-muscled senior, took the bat and began knocking flies and grounders to us, playing work-up for one old cat. I soon realized that I was not good at catching or fielding. Why the ball came at me all blurry until it sped up and bounced through my fingers frustrated me. This stayed a mystery for 3 years when a friend suggested a vision test. I'd never had one in my 8 years of public school, nor had my parents thought of it. Children were assumed to be healthy and hardy. They had been. Meanwhile, beside me, Harold caught and fielded with ease and grace, working up the bat twice. After a fast grounder skipped my hands and bruised my chest, I abruptly gave it up and walked down to the hand-crank car ferry, where a few cars and trucks crossed each day from Stone County. The operator stood relaxed against the windlass of the wooden scow that breezy fall day, a typical lean hill man in denim cap and bib overall. Dad had often taken me to meet such men. I always liked them. Of uncertain age, slightly reserved, equable and good-humored, everybody's uncle. At once I was gabbing away about fishing and hunting, then we heard running footsteps and glanced around as Harold jumped aboard. The open hull shifted gently at its mooring as the rope hawser stretched and eased. Fresh airflow over the swirling water bathed us as we talked and laughed. Big drumfish hanging in the boat's shadow grunted loudly, actually buzzing our feet through the boat's through the floorboards, making us laugh even more. The ferryman said they did that by rubbing together some stones in their heads. I doubted this. I'd read something about swim bladders. He told us a tale or two of hunting deer and razorbacks, feral pigs, across the river. It was a fun time till the ferryman tugged his watch from his bib and told us to hurry. School was about to take up. As we hopped into the school field, the heavy bell in the school cupola bonged twice. I started to run, but Harold grabbed my shoulder and said we should show our independence and walk in together. I soon realized that almost everyone reacted to Harold as naturally and easily as I had, though he never put out any effort to be like, obviously never worried about it. His total effect, how can I put it? Zest for life, instinctive care for others, natural aristocracy, maybe a bit of all. Yet none of us resented him or seemed envious. I certainly could have, but it never came up. I assume he was some happy union of nature and nurture, special blend of sympathetic personality and physical wholesomeness. I never lost that impression. He had the glow of health and youth without prettiness, firm and clear features, squarish jaw, wavy auburn hair, good teeth and pleasing smile, clear light brown irises, a strong but not muscular physique, was tall enough but under 6 feet. He dressed in khakis and sports shirts, well groomed, but not fussy or particular. He never acted bored or out of sorts. A bevy of girls perched on the side steps at noon found Harold irresistible. They planned their moves, and in unison as he fielded the ball nearby would coo loudly, "Hello, Harold." A light flush would show up the freckles under his tan, provoking them to tease him more, laughing and calling. Coming from a community on the far side of the dam meant that Harold had to hoof it 2 miles or more each time that I saw him. None of us kids had cars or access to one. Wartime scarcity still lingered in gas and some types of food. For a time during the war years, I took along the family book of ration stamps whenever I went to the store for Vita. The few cars around were all pre-war. Afterward, Dub Eason, Dad's work buddy and boss, brought the first new one to show it off. A chrome green Ford sedan, shaped like an inverted bathtub. Jack Rhodes' dad, Big Jack, still drove an old flat-roof four-seater Model A. Due to hardship and distances, aside from school days, I saw Harold no more than a dozen times during that school year and summer vacation. Meanwhile, nothing else stood still. A lot happened to our haphazard family group. The construction and finishing work on the dam ended completely. Dad became a fishing guide on the lake and the rivers, but the pay was low and uncertain. To help our larder, he bought a 2-year-old billy goat to butcher and can. He also bought a cow and calf pair for me to feed and handle. The cow ranged freely during the day in the valley behind us since we had no pasture. This meant I must hunt her each day and milk her. He took back the Winchester pump shotgun, my birthday gift, to trade it for a pair of pesky Jenny mules, which I was to solo learn to ride and work. By this time, all the worker families had left except the Rhodeses across the way. Dad bought 14 acres around the Big Spring and assembled a house on the ridge slope by moving in 2 worker cabins and connecting them with a central room. On a Friday in October, I came from school to find a pile of freshly cut white oak logs beside a 1/4 acre of rough plowed ground not far from the spring. Without looking at me, Vida told me TM's orders. I was to split the logs into fence posts and fence the plot for a garden, after which Vida and I would work it up. Vida was a good barefoot gardener. My first real anger at Dad rose up when I heard this. He had surprising abilities to conceive and carry out projects, but for us was neither a good leader nor instructor. The phrase I remember most from his teaching attempts was, "No, not that way, damn it." As the eldest of 6 children, Dad alone was the one who failed to maintain his own loving family. He was impractical with money, never planned for the future, a man of the roving foot. This task, with Dad off somewhere, just seemed unfair to me. Besides, I expected a little freedom that Saturday. Maybe to ramble on the river with Jack Rhodes just seemed too much. My mood darkened. But the next morning, I attacked the log pile with maul, axe, and wedges. Soon the first storm of fall blew in with cold mist and driving rain. Doggedly, I kept pounding and splitting. In minutes, I was drenched and chilled, but stayed with it. In juvenile despair, I convinced myself that no one cared about me. Most likely, I carried a virus contracted at school. Within a day, I was down with some kind of flu with complications, both ears infected. I got past the fever, chills, vomiting, aches, and draining ears, though I remember nights of pain and crying, parents near and the doctor's voice. Then I reached a quieter stage from which my parents assumed I would improve. Dad resumed his usual search for work. Caring for the 2 youngest and getting Dave and Bill off to school kept Vida busy. No one noticed I was growing weaker. I lay in bed on the far side of the house, somewhat quarantined. Finally, I began to faint when I tried to get up, coming to in a heap of buzzing limbs on the floor. Someone found me this way, and TM called Grandmother Ivy in Kansas. Concerned for her firstborn's firstborn, she packed a few clothes, put on her lacquered straw hat, and took the bus. Once arrived, she quickly got me to Mountain Home and into an upstairs hotel on the square. The county had no hospital. Every 2 hours, until I was out of danger, she roused me and supported me on a long, wobbly walk down the narrow stairs and across the square to the doctor's office for an injection. It was penicillin, becoming available for civilians after the war. I'm sure that Grandmother and penicillin saved me. Before Grandmother came, I lay for days in a half-dozing state. My awareness floated detached somewhere above and beyond the bag of weakness that was my body. At times I wondered idly if I would die. Drifting in that hazy lassitude, it didn't seem to matter. But after Grandmother got me home, she monitored my progress closely, fed and nursed me, and slept on a cot nearby. I gained strength daily and soon was dressing and venturing outside. When I was clearly out of danger, Grandmother put on her traveling clothes again and came to say goodbye. I sensed then that hers had been the only true mothering I was to have. On the morning I hiked up to meet the school truck again, I had been out 60 days. My fellow riders stared at me strangely as I climbed over the tailgate. Only Harold, with a few welcoming words, seemed glad that I was back. Now that I'd survived, all school and social anxiety came rushing back. I was eager to catch up, but agonizing over the 2-month gap. Would they even let me try? The teachers surprised me. Basically, they shrugged and told me to get busy. As an early reader, I always did well in English, so getting back into Mrs. Ray's course was easy. She acted like I showed some promise, the first such teacher reaction I could recall. Algebra was different. I couldn't pick up where I dropped out in it. I was never good at it, even dreaded talking to the teacher, a tanned and taciturn ex-WAC officer. She stared at me severely, muttered something, and put me down with a D for the term. I was all sweating gratitude. Part of my teacher's lenience may have come from the rapid loss of pupils as the workers at the dam moved away. My other teachers were like Mrs. Ray. That left only Agri Shop, which I was late for. Whether farm boys or not, all had to take Agri Shop. During my fragment of the fall term, we spent it studying animal feed rations and listening to stocky Mr. Deckard rave against the federal farm parity program and the price of butter. Our class even had one voluntary girl pupil, Clarice, Bob Black's sweetie. This added to the fun when Decker, in a wild rant one day, threw up his arms, his braces popped loose, and he sank to the floor clutching at his size 48 pants. Now Decker had the shop part open so kids could work on their projects as Christmas gifts. I'd missed out on this. I hurried toward the whine and shriek of machine noise in the shed addition at the building's end. The big outside door stood open to cut down on wood dust and let in air. Back then, no one used dust filters or face shields. The whole room was in motion, boys sawing, nailing, drilling, sanding, gluing, clamping, bumping into one another, and fighting for bench space. How much could a guy get done in one class period per week? Mr. Decker was at the planer and table saw in the center, showing a kid how to save knuckles and digits with a push stick. I noticed Harold at a wall bench, busy on a whatnot shelf or etagere. I tugged at Mr. Decker's sleeve and asked about my Agri notebook. He gave a short barking laugh and told me to forget it and get busy on a shop project. Relieved but anxious, I ran over to get details from Harold. He said each boy had to plan, order materials, and pay for his own project beforehand. I had neither time, lumber, nor money. Harold smiled at my distress and said, rummage in the scrap bin and plan something small. I pawed through the remnants of other terms, leaving the cedar chest, clothes trees, and end tables, and came upon enough thick cedar blocks for duck bookends. Mr. Decker nodded and turned away when I told him I got busy. As we left at the bell, I thanked Harold. He slapped my shoulder and went on. Somehow I was back. Since I'd carved decoy heads before, the bookends came out fine, glassily glaring at each other. No one else in the family cared for books, so I kept them for myself, until a house fire while I was in military service destroyed my keepsakes. My strength came back in a rush. A few frosty nights later, Jack, Harold, and I took my carbide miner's lamp and two dogs out on the ridge to tree something, anything, running pell-mell in the dark, leaping off ledges in a mad chase after the dogs. We never broke a bone. We caught only a poor old possum or two. What we really chased was the thrill of risk and the joy of bounding effort. The school gave an after-classes party with boy and girl games like spin the bottle. A prize or penalty sent the match pair around the building in the dark. Fate linked me with Lilybeth, who snatched my hand and yanked me out, around and back in record time. I had no yearning for Lilybeth, but I felt the insult. Almost 15, I was still a kid to her. Harold lucked out, drawing one of the prettier girls. Then Mrs. Ray staged a farce in the small auditorium. With so few students, she had to cast many and ill-fitting roles. I've wondered if I was miscast. I played a smirking villain who menaced the male lead, the stalwart senior, Ben. He collared me, but I barked out my line so loudly that he reacted by crunching my neck. A horn-laden version of Sentimental Journey blasted the audience at intermission. Even now I laugh when I hear it. By this time, the leader of the girl chorus on the steps was actively pursuing Harold. She was a pretty brunette with an insinuating manner and a resemblance to the film star Merle Oberon. She flaunted an intimate smile at every opportunity. I didn't trust her, so I nerved myself, waylaid Harold in the schoolyard, and told him so. He studied me closely as I stammered out my warning, then shook his head and walked off laughing. I watched him go, feeling foolish enough. I felt he was still my friend. At least he hadn't acted angry or told me off. In fact, I was never to see a hint of anger, sullenness, or braggart behavior in Harold, elements common enough in others. A recruiting team from the State University arrived one day, a handsome trio of music drama majors. All were dressed in 40s campus style, soft flannels and pullovers and muted colors, nice saddle Oxfords, cushiony socks, burnished Greek insignia on their sweaters, even tiny golden pins for the collar tabs on the girls' snowy blouses.